Linda Valliere Siegmann.
And your official title is?
It's Secretary Treasurer of the Business Committee.
Excellent. Perfect. And your favorite flavor of ice cream is?
Chocolate.
Just chocolate? All the ice cream flavors in the world, you're going to go with chocolate, huh?
Yeah.
That's okay. You're allowed to have that favorite. That's very, very permissible.
Any variation of chocolate.
Okay, any variation. Excellent. I am looking at my phone for the notes. I am not being rude. I promise you that.
Oh, you're fine.
Starting out, just give me, when it comes to the tribal nations that you're affiliated with, tribal nation or nations you're affiliated with.
I am O-Gah-Pah Nation.
Okay,
That's
excellent. Any others? Just O-Gah-Pah Nation?
Just O-Gah-Pah.
Perfect. Keeping it simple for me. Give me a little bit of a lineage. You can go back one generation. You can go back 20 if you want to, whatever you want to do. But when it comes to your lineage in O-Gah-Pah, how far back do you want to go?
I can probably go all the way back to, I know my mother's Susie Valliere. My grandfather is George Pokey Valliere. His father was James Valliere, and I believe James Valliere was the son of Samuel Valliere.
Excellent.
So I think that's as far back as I can go.
That was plenty far. That was wonderful. Perfect. Let's start with maybe just some early memories. When it comes to, you could be 7 years old, you could be 14 years old, but when you started to learn about O-Gah-Pah culture, what do you remember? What were some of the things that were passed down to you? What are some of the trips you took, maybe the powwow you went to? But when you think about thinking, oh, this is unique, this is different, this is O-Gah-Pah culture, what kind of memories do you have?
Most of my memories as far as whenever I was a child is basically coming to the powwows. We started coming to the powwows. It's things that my grandfather was sitting over at my grandfather's house, listening to him sing songs. He used to have some polka guys who would come over and they would sing polka songs, and he would put them on the reel-to-reels, and he would sit there and we'd be listening to those songs on the reel-to-reel while he was telling us the stories about the songs. I remember him sitting. That was probably my favorite memory of him, is the times that we spent with him sitting up all night long listening to all of his stories and the things that he would tell us about being Native American, or just different stories about life in general. So,
do you remember do any of them stick out to you, or were any memorable?
I think probably the ones that I remember the most are the ones that he told us about cedar trees and how cedar trees are sacred and spirits live in cedar trees, and that those that have passed on, you should always plant a cedar tree for them. Different things like that, and things that could happen to people if they killed a cedar tree because of their sacredness and the spirits that live in them.
But this is a vivid memory you have growing up listening to reel-to-reels with your
on the reel-to-reel tapes.
I haven't seen one of those in many, many moons now. Let's talk about the powwow a little bit. Describe it for me. Pretend I've never been there. Or just do this. Pretend you run into an old friend and they've never been to a powwow. How would you explain to them? They're like, oh, maybe that's just, I think you guys go in a circle. It's a dance maybe. How would you describe what a powwow means to you, what it is to you?
It is the gathering of your family members and friends, and the gathering of people from the same culture that celebrate and share things. And stepping out in that arena, there is a spirituality to it. You can listening to the drum and the songs. When you go out there to dance, you can feel your ancestors around you. It's like you're joining and you're celebrating with not just with everybody that's there physically, but all of the ancestors that are coming in to dance with you. And you dance for your ancestors, and you dance for the people that are coming up behind you, and your children, and even the ones that aren't there yet. But you dance for all of them.
So well said. Thank you so much for that. Tell me the importance of the drum. For somebody that would just think it's just a drum. It's just the beat. What would you say? What does the drum mean to you?
The drum is the heartbeat. The drum is the heartbeat of Mother Earth. The drum is what, you can have a dance without dancers, but you can't have a dance without drums or the singers. That's what brings, the drum is what brings the spirits out to commune with you.
Tell me about what happens at the campfires around, when you go back and you're eating meals with family. Like, what's that experience like for you growing up or older or even now? What's that like?
I think probably one of the first memories I have of having meals at the powwows and stuff is my Aunt Charm, my grandfather's sister. And she would always put the big pots on the big fire, and she'd take the pots and hand it to us kids and hand us a bar of soap, tell us to soap the pot. She had to use a bar of soap and soap the outside of the pot, so whenever at the end of the weekend, you could just wash it off. It didn't blacken our pots. So that was one of the things, but that was just one of those little kid things. Now I try to make sure I always pass that down to any of the other kids or anybody else that's cooking on an open fire. Soak that pot. Makes the cleanup a lot easier. But it was just, I remember my grandfather always telling me if somebody invites you to their camp to eat, you don't refuse. You go eat. Even if you've eaten several times before, within the last couple of hours, you still go and you at least eat a little bit, because it's an insult to decline food, because food is something that's very important. Food brings us together. Food is a way of, we're sharing a life force. We're sharing what gives, one of the things that helps to sustain you. And food is important to people. Food is important it's important to feed people. It's important to sit down and eat with people.
Extremely well said. How do you feel the first night of a powwow, or the day before the powwow, or when you first go over the hill, when you first start to hear the drum? Like, what does that make you feel?
I feel like I'm home. I'm home. That's one of the things. When my mother and I would come up here to the powwows or the dances or anything going on up here, we'd come around that curve. Just around the curve as you're coming up to the powwow grounds, and she would say, "We're home." Every time she'd say, "We're home. We're home," because this is where our heart is. This is where our ancestors have done so much. This is where we've spent so much time with our people. It's like the powwows is a family reunion with a bunch of friends and everybody else, and this is where we've always been the most comfortable. This is where the heart lives.
So well said. You talked about music being something that was passed down to you. When you think of things that have been passed down to you or that you passed down to the next generation, and I'm just going to give you a list just to maybe jog your memory a little bit, but just when it comes to anything like craftsmanship or art or pottery or silversmithing or food related like growing, harvesting, preserving, or cooking, or storytelling, are there any things that pop in your mind or things that have been passed down to you? Or if you want to go this way, things that you put an emphasis on passing down to the next generation?
I think there's a lot of things within our culture that's important to pass down, not just the art. I mean, beadwork was passed down to me. I'm currently learning from Betty Gadke how to do the pottery. So I'm having a whole lot of fun with that. I think that's something that's really important. Being able to learn how to make your regalia. My mother taught me how to make Quapaw dresses, and I'm currently making Quapaw dresses for my cousin's daughters. So, I'm teaching them the importance of our dress and why we need to wear our dresses, especially when we're dancing. I think the stories. My grandfather was a huge storyteller, so learning his stories and being able to tell our stories, learning our heritage, learning what our language, learning where we came from and who did the different things, our history, what our history is, how we got here. think those are all things that are important that we continue to pass down to our people, because if they don't know where they came from, they don't know where they're going. It gives them direction in life. It gives me direction in life to know where I came from. And I keep doing everything I can to learn more, because I know I don't know it all. There's a lot of things that weren't passed down, or maybe I forgot. I was told that I had forgotten, and I still want to learn more and make sure that I have it straight in my mind, so when I pass it down, I'm passing down the correct information. Learning the language. I haven't been able to really learn the language very well, but I do remember my grandfather regretted that he didn't learn the language. And I think that was just kind of the times in his generation, was that they were taught to not speak the language. And I think that was a travesty, because he regretted not learning it and not passing it on to us. And I'd like to learn more about it so that I can pass it on, because it's important. It's part of our culture. It's part of who we are.
And let's expand upon that last note. Pretending I don't know anything about the history. Why did your grandfather not know the language? And even O-Gah-Pah, in a general term, not really have a firm grasp of the language. What happened in O-Gah-Pah's past that suppressed the language?
I believe a lot of it was all of our kids having to go to a school, being in the boarding school, and not being allowed to speak it, or going whenever they were in schools. And even if whenever my mother was in school, she couldn't speak the language. Even if she had known any part of it, she wouldn't have been allowed to speak it either. So I think it's that whole time frame of, especially with the boarding schools, not allowing the children to speak.
Did your mom ever talk about that at all? Did she ever talk about the suppression of language?
She didn't talk about stuff like that. And that's one of the things. My mother's generation and my grandfather's generation didn't talk about a whole lot of things like that. They were taught, you don't speak about those things. Those were things that, even if they were not very good things that happened to you, you never spoke about it. You didn't, because if you spoke about it, you would have to relive it, and they didn't want to relive it.
A theme that a lot of people talked about is how the previous generations were trying in a lot of ways to do good by the next generation by having them assimilate into the culture, and that's why teaching language didn't take priority over other things. Do you feel like that way?
I feel like it was a safety issue. They didn't want us to be hurt. They didn't want to be hurt, and it was like there were some things that if I started to step into something and I would find out about a few things, my mother would tell me, leave it alone. My grandfather would tell me, leave it alone. Leave it alone, step away from it. That's a dangerous situation. And later on I would find out it was dangerous, because it was things that if you talked about, or you went and did anything, or tried to speak out about anything that was wrong that was going on, it was dangerous to your life. There were people that would harm you for speaking out about any wrongs that were happening.
And they wanted to protect you.
Yeah, and they wanted to protect us.
Something that we're also seeing during these interviews is there's a trend that is happening where, culturally speaking, across many generations, there was many tragedies to the O-Gah-Pah people, and then there was the suppression by the Catholic Church. And I know that's a nuanced way to say it. I know it's not just that, but suppression, and then years of stability, and then there seems to be a trend right now where the O-Gah-Pah people as a whole are seeing success, and younger generations are seeing opportunity, and there's optimism in the O-Gah-Pah culture. Do you feel that way?
I absolutely do. I feel that we do. We are in a time where we're setting things up to be able to build that infrastructure and that foundation, to be able to take our children and take our people into the next generations in prosperity and success. One of the things that I've learned is you have to think 7 generations ahead. Whatever decisions that we make today, when we make those decisions, we need to think that 7 generations ahead. Is this going to build a good foundation for 7 generations down the line that they're going to be able to continue to prosper? Because if we don't, we only think about just today and what's going on today, we're failing our people, we're failing our children and our grandchildren. We need to keep thinking 7 generations ahead. Do we build that financial structure so that 7 generations down the line, they're still going to be taken care of? Do we build our culture and our language and things to the point that we need to think that 7 generations down the line, are they going to be able to carry on with our culture and our heritage?
So well said. Where do you hope O-Gah-Pah is in 7 generations?
7 generations, I hope that they are very strong. I hope that we are a very strong economic center and that we have our people come back and we have a very large, thriving culture with our language and our children speaking our language, having the schools to educate on not just what our culture is and where we came from in our history, but also where we have the potential to go and to basically be one of those tribes that people look up to all around the world and say, you know what, they did it. They came out of something where they were almost annihilated, and they're thriving, and they're strong, and they're continuing on, and that we grow to be bigger, have set the example for how to be able to be good stewards of the earth, good stewards of our economy, good stewards of being able to have things that we can just keep so that they can move forward. And it makes it easier for them to think 7 generations ahead.
So well said. You mentioned something about coming back. And this is also a topic that's been brought up from time to time of scattered. And this goes back to the original story, the O-Gah-Pah, and what happened crossing a river. But I guess the question is, why are the O-Gah-Pah people scattered in so many different ways? Historically speaking, what are the reasons why there is such, and even practically today, why somebody would leave this area? But I know that's a very vast question, but I guess the question would be, are the O-Gah-Pah people historically scattered people?
Not historically. In the 16, 17, early 1800s, it was the treaties that basically started the scattering. The whole thing that happened in the 1800s that started the scattering, where we were homeless so many different times. And then being a fraction of us being put in Little Rock at the O-Gah-Pah Fort and having the smallpox blankets handed out to us, and our numbers dwindling, and so many people dying along the way, and then bringing us back over here, and then we ended up, some of us scattered again. And I would say probably in the 1900s, in today's world, with the decline in the economy in the area, like my mother had to move away to be able to provide for her family. She couldn't stay living in the Miami or O-Gah-Pah area because she had to be able to make a living. She couldn't find any place to be able to make a living here. And I think that's happened a lot with, especially in the most recent times, is we don't have the infrastructure. We don't have the housing. We don't have the economy at the moment to be able to keep people here so that they can provide for their families. So they scatter. So we're scattered all across the country. We need to build that infrastructure and bring them back.
I could talk to you all day. I know you need to get out of here. Are there any other topics that you'd like to talk about?
I'm going to thank you guys for doing this.
Of course.
Because this is something, being able to pass on and record our history and record the things so that future generations can see this and can see how important it is that we continue on with our culture and our language and supporting each other. And it's about the community. It's not about us as an individuals, but it's about us as a community, and it's about us as a people.